Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. This is an exciting time for us. This is the first in our 6 in the 6 business series, helping you along with your digital translation. Let me tell you, 6 in the 6 was started by 3 business people in Scarborough, Ontario, part of Toronto, who are part of the Scarborough Business Association virtual networking group. So I guess we're living proof networking works, because we looked at what we all do and we decided we're all over the same area, but we do very different things and we provide very different services. So we thought we'd try this video series, this webinar series, and help folks along. Today is our first session. First session is with Mayank Shrinet of Cygnik and Ashish Laxman. And they'll be presenting on critical steps for your cybersecurity. You can see the different sessions coming, and you can find those sessions, by the way, on any of our websites, and you can see the websites listed on the right-hand side of this page. If you have questions during the session, I encourage you to tap them into the chat, and after the presentation, then we'll deal with the questions. We'll answer the questions. And really, in any of these, no question is silly. Every question matters. Every answer matters. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. It's a very important part of the understanding process, of course. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to introduce our 2 speakers. Just a second here. In my world, I got to. Okay, so today we'll have Mayank Shrinet, and Mayank helps businesses practice technology use while balancing the implications to people and processes. He has spent more than a decade assisting clients to achieve success across the enterprise through digital transformation. Mayank strongly believes an excellent customer experience is key to success and spends time in ensuring he exceeds clients' expectations. Mayank is experienced in requirements gathering, analysis, and consultation for secure digital business transformation and minimizing cyber risks using cloud service provider. After Mayank, we'll hear from Ashish Laxman. And Ashish is a cybersecurity professional with more than a decade of experience focusing on cybersecurity strategy, vulnerability management, cyber threat analysis, and incident response. He's led multiple cross-functional teams in building the best-in-class solutions for cybersecurity programs in financial services, Internet of Things, and the telecommunications industry. Ashish is committed to well-managed enterprise cyber initiatives and enable the business while safeguarding customers, the workforce, assets, and the brand. Ashish has several leading industry certifications, such as CISSP, CEH, AWS Solution Architect, AWS Security, and Certified Incident Handler. I think after that, I'm going to give Ashish his own TV show. Sounds like it'd be pretty exciting. So gentlemen, I appreciate that. And Mayank, if you want to share your screen and start the presentation, that would be great.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and welcome everyone. Let me just share my screen so that we can start the presentation. Welcome everyone. And as Peter mentioned, this is the first of our web series webinar for critical steps for your cybersecurity. And a brief introduction about our company. Ashish and I work for Cygnik Tech, and this company is basically focused on providing digital transformation to small to mid-sized businesses. Any business whose strong suit is not IT, we come in, we help the organizations, and we take it from there. So basically, we work at the virtual CIO. So that's our company. That's about us. Peter already gave us a very good introduction. So let's move ahead with today's presentation. So today we are going to talk about importance of cybersecurity, essential 8 strategies to mitigate cyber incidents, and some free tools to implement those 8 strategies. So 8 strategies we have taken up from Australian cybersecurity framework, we'll be discussing that further in the slides. So why cybersecurity is important? That's the first question that comes to our mind. Everyone is talking about cybersecurity. So basically, it refers to a body of technologies, processes, and practices designed to protect us from attack, damage, or unauthorized access. That's wholesome. It's a dictionary meaning of cybersecurity, but in reality, it's much more than that. So when I say much more than that, I was referring to why it's important. And it's one of the important aspect of technology that is evolving at a very fast rate. It's daily something is happening, some changes are happening somewhere in the world. And because of the internet, everything is connected. We can be more vulnerable. New threat attacks are happening, as we see. Millions of businesses are getting affected in and around us. It's not just specifically located, for any one geographical location. So it's wide open for anyone. So anyone sitting from one part of the world can hack or attack different part of the world. So what's organizational dilemma? So all the businesses, they have three important things. They are confused. They have a dilemma about cybersecurity. So first is, what is cybersecurity? They do not understand what is cybersecurity. The next aspect is why it is important to them and how businesses can mitigate, that cybersecurity threat. That's the main dilemma for organizations or businesses that have. If you look around us, every business is somehow dependent on IT infrastructure in some or the other way. For example, emails, billing, CRM, VoIP, whatever infrastructure that you see, the way we are connected, the Zoom, everything uses internet, and that's based on your small or big IT infrastructure. In short, there's no other way we can isolate our businesses from these threats. They're real, they're persistent. It's just a matter of time, when we fall victim to them. Another worst aspect of cybersecurity is that you cannot guarantee prevention. Even if we take all the measures that we'll be discussing, or even some more, there is no guarantee that we'll be saved from those cyber attacks. So that's a big thing. That's why we have to pay special attention towards cybersecurity. Another aspect is that cybersecurity, you cannot take legal actions when a cyber attack is happening. In most cases, and when I say most cases, bigger organizations, they have a different way of working, but in most cases, small to mid-sized businesses, attack is happening from one part of the world into a different part of the world. So the attacker and the person who's getting attacked, or the business who's getting attacked, or the hacker, they rely in different geographical locations. So there is no jurisdiction, there is no governing law. You do not know the source. So it is very difficult to trace and prosecute the hacker. Yes, in some bigger organizations, they have different ways, going to WTO, but again, it's a very lengthy process. It needs a lot of resources, and the results of those kind of follow-ups are not very positive in reality. So for the same reason, a lot of cyber insurance companies are there which provide insurance to companies in case there is a hacking hack happen. You have someone helping you out, the insurance company, in order to pay, because in most cases you have to pay the ransom, otherwise your data is lost. So that's about why cybersecurity is important. Now, this slide is dedicated for the recent cyber incident that was happening around me. So when I was making this slide, we were trying to focus specifically on Canada, but I see few of our attendees are outside of Canada also. But the importance of this slide I just wanted to show is, let's say on the top left corner, if you see, healthcare sector sees 250% spike in cyber attacks. Now, this is very interesting. While I was preparing for this webinar, I tried looking for cyber incident which is happening around me. And frankly speaking, there was no shortage of it. This slide is overwhelming with all the news around us, specifically GTA. Every business is attacked, small or big. So problems like the small businesses, they do not have dedicated resource or technical expertise to deal with these kinds of attacks. 250, that doesn't happen to bigger healthcare. When I say healthcare, it doesn't mean big pharmaceutical company that is happening around us right now. This happens with small clinics, diagnostic centers. Yeah, everyone is impacted by that For a matter of fact, let's take an example of Life Labs. In Canada, I think everyone is, not everyone, but let's say Life Lab is one of the biggest diagnostic center. If somehow, you have done work with them, not work means if you have used their services, you might received an email last year. They were updating all of their clients because they were hacked. That's another liability. When you get hacked, you have to update each of your customer that you have been hacked, their data had been breached. It's by the law. So that's one of the biggest thing happen in Canada in healthcare sector that we are aware of. Another one is Molson Coors beer. So that's a very famous Canadian beer. We all are aware of it. The only purpose to add this new snippet is just to show even bigger organizations with much more resources and manpower and technical expertise are not able to stop these kinds of attacks. So it's just to give you an idea. And when we say small firms, I was just reading there are two small, very, very small law firms. Their computers were locked and they are based out of Manitoba. Yeah, so it's there is no consistency who will be hacked, who won't be hacked. So it's a matter of time. It can happen to anyone. So some statistics. So CFIB is one of the biggest business chamber of commerce in Canada, Canadian Federation of Independent Business Owners, that represents around 100,000 small businesses. They came up with a report, and as per them, a quarter of businesses have experienced cyber attacks since March 2020. So quarter of businesses means out of 100,000, 25,000 businesses within Canada have been attacked within last 1 year. And out of that 25,000, 5% of overall attacks were successful. When they say successful means either you lost your data, because success from hacker's point of view will be either you losing your data or the hacker is getting the money out of it. That's what it implies. So the threat is real and it's out there. It's just we need to be aware of it and to take steps. So that slide was just specifically just to give you an idea, that the threat is real and persistent. This slide, in this slide, we'll be discussing what are the 8 frameworks we are discussing, what 8-pointer framework that we'll be discussing in the whole slide. That's a strategy framework. So all the cybersecurity agencies run by government. There are approximately every developed nation in the world have a dedicated cybersecurity agency who looks after the framework for cybersecurity. The main task is to handle cyber threats and providing guidelines for securing their digital assets against cybercrime. There's a reason countries are spending time and resources in cybersecurity, as cyber attacks are not always planned and executed by private individuals, but state nations also. So that's why countries has to spend their resources in getting ready their economy to save their economy. In this webinar, we'll be discussing Australian cybersecurity framework. They have essential 8 strategies to mitigate cybersecurity incidents. My bad, sorry. Canada has its own Canada Center for Cybersecurity. European agency have their own, and US have their own cybersecurity infrastructure agency. But the good thing is with the cybersecurity, Australian Cybersecurity Center, it's well renowned among cybersecurity community. And their 8 strategies or framework are much more simpler to implement as compared to other strategies that we have in the world. So yeah, that's about it. That's about cybersecurity agencies and what framework we'll be discussing from here. Now I'll pass on the presentation to Ashish. He will continue from here. Ashish.
Great. Cool. Thank you, Mayank. All right, then let's discuss about the strategies. So what are these essential 8 strategies? Australian Cybersecurity Center has released 29 cybersecurity strategies that can help organizations to secure their network. Now, out of these 29 strategies, there are 8 strategies that the center has determined to be absolutely necessary for any organizations that are trying to secure their network. They have grouped these strategies under 3 categories. The first category can help prevent malware delivery and execution. And this category includes 4 strategies out of the 8 strategies that we're going to talk about. The second group of strategy includes the next 3 controls that can help limit the effect of a security incident. And the last category includes a strategy that can help recover organization after it has a security incident. So we will be talking about each strategy in detail in further slides. We'll discuss about why it's important and the tools that can help you to implement these strategies. And now, next slide, please. Okay, so what is the first strategy? The first strategy talks about application control. The goal of this strategy is to make sure organizations maintain a list of applications that are allowed to run on their network, and rest all other applications are supposed to be blocked. So this strategy recommends to block any executable or any random installer files from the internet to be running on the employee's laptop. So with this strategy, it helps in blocking any malware getting installed on employee's laptop. I have seen multiple instances where organizations have no app restrictions and in turn infect the machines, like employees download these malware executables and infect their own machines with malware or virus. So to implement these, we have several tools out in the market. We have a Windows native tool as well, that is App Locker, which you can use to restrict unauthorized application. We also have an application control plus tool from Manage Engine, and its feature is very similar to App Locker, which is a Windows native tool. Next slide, please. So the second strategy is about patching applications. So when I say patching application is to apply updates to mitigate any security vulnerabilities. The recommendation is to patch any critical vulnerability within 48 hours when it's out in the market. For any organizations to get to this level, they will have to start with a patch management process where whenever a patch is released, they are notified about it. It's tested on a few test machines. And once this is done, they release it to all their production assets. So patching vulnerabilities in applications greatly reduces the attack vector that adversaries can use to compromise our network. So that's why it's really important that we make sure any security vulnerabilities affecting an application is immediately patched. So again, regarding the tools that we have available, these are Patch Manager Plus from Manage Engine. It's another tool that can be used to centrally manage inventory of all applications that are running on users' laptop. And this tool is supported on both Windows and Mac machines. Next slide, please. Okay, about macros. So before we start discussing about macros, I want to share that phishing emails is still the #1 cause of data breaches. Phishing emails are scam emails that are delivered to your inboxes where attackers impersonate legitimate person or organizations to reveal sensitive information. Sometimes these phishing emails contains Excel file with malicious macros, and it all requires a single click to get infected. So controlling Microsoft Office macros setting is very crucial. So, I mean, there has been use cases where people do require Office macros, like salespeople, marketing, and HR needs macros. So we don't have to block it on all users. It has to be based on you have to understand the risk on blocking it on all machines or just limiting it to enabling it only on some few set of peoples in your organization. So the third strategy that is about disabling macros from the internet by default has to be enabled. And we need to make sure we enable only digitally signed or only allow macros from a trusted location. So those are some of the strategies that you can implement regarding blocking macros. Now, again, like I mentioned, blocking macros organization-wide might generate some grief over teams like sales and marketing. So organization can plan on disabling macros with notification, where users have to explicitly hit on yes or to turn on macros if it's required for any daily activities that they are involved in. So now for tools to prevent macros from running by default, there is always an option where we can disable it using group policy, where you can enable that setting to block macros coming from the internet. So that's one option. All right, so going to the next slide. So we are at the last control of this first category, that is control to prevent malware. The fourth strategy is all about making sure any unnecessary features are disabled. For example, in browsers, it's best to disable Flash JavaScript from running. We have seen so many breaches happening due to Flash and Java vulnerabilities. And to secure browsers, it's always recommended that we turn on ad blocker, because we have seen so many times where ads have been another avenue or another attack vector where attackers have been using to compromise systems. So to implement this strategy, organizations can use their existing tool that they use to manage their end user laptops, where they can use browser settings to disable Java and any other unneeded features. End users can also use tools like Qualys ad blocker or Qualys browser check or malware browser guards to make sure what settings are enabled. And these tools also recommend if they have any recommendation on things that they can turn on to make sure their browsers are more secure. So that wraps up the first category, that is strategies that can help prevent malware execution. So before I move on and talk about the strategy fifth, I would like to share an experience that I had dealing with a cybersecurity incident a couple of years back. I was on an engagement to investigate a cybersecurity incident where one of the employees was browsing the internet. He landed on a news website and clicked on an ad. And now the next thing was the ad delivered an Excel file to his machine. And the Excel file had a very catchy name, something along the lines of, okay, know your CEO salary and other colleagues' salaries. Sounds like pretty interesting, right? So the user opened the Excel file and the files had macros enabled, which downloaded and executed a ransomware on the user's machine. The ransomware is a type of malware which encrypts files on your machine, and basically it makes the files not readable. And so that's pretty much about the incident. I mean, dealing with the incident, I'll talk about it at some other point. But now the question is, what could the organization done to protect these attacks, right? So all the controls that we discussed in the first four controls, if the organization would have enabled this, I would say absolutely we could have stopped this incident from happening. So next slide, Mayank. So moving on to the next strategy. This is the fifth strategy. And this strategy is about limiting admin privileges. Organizations have to follow least privilege model. Okay, so what I mean by least privileges is that enable only required privileges to the user accounts. We should regularly review permissions given to this user account, and if needed, remove privileges that are not required by the user accounts. For administrators in your network, I would say it's absolutely necessary to have separate accounts, one for regular activities where they go to the internet, read emails and other things like, which doesn't require privileges. And there has to be a second account which has more permissions, which they can use to install application or log into their remote servers. So how does this help? Administrator credentials are basically keys to your network. And if that gets hacked, the attacker has full control of your network. So it's absolutely necessary to make sure that you protect the privileged account. So how can you protect yourself? Organizations that are like Windows shop, and if they use Active Directory, then they should start looking at limiting domain admins. There are also other tools like Glue and WSO2 identity servers, which can be used to centrally manage permissions of any applications that they're running in their environment. Both of these tools are popular among the security community. So that's all about the fifth strategy. Moving on to the next slide. The next strategy is about patching operating systems. We have seen a strategy before that was the second strategy. It was all about patching applications. But this sixth strategy is about patching operating systems. So Microsoft, we are talking about Windows here. So Microsoft releases monthly updates on Patch Tuesdays. So Patch Tuesday is a term, unofficial term that they call that every second Tuesday of a month, they release a security operating system update. So we have the same recommendation, that is, whenever there's any critical vulnerabilities and there isn't a patch update available, we have to make sure that we apply these patch updates as soon as possible, like within 48 hours. So for that, we need to have a patch management process in the organization. So why is this important? Similar to application vulnerabilities. Again, vulnerabilities in operating system can also be used by attackers to exploit the system. Now, how can we protect ourselves? We have several tools available in the market. We have Open Audit, Spiceworks, which can be used to inventory all the applications and operating system versions running on all the machines in your organization. And you can use it to apply security updates to your machines. All right, then moving on to the next strategy is enabling multi-factor authentication, or I would say MFA. So what is MFA? MFA ensures that the users who are trying to log into an application provides at least two evidences to prove their identity. First could be a password, and a second could be a code on your phone using Google Authenticator, or some application also sends out code as an SMS. So this is one of the essential things that it's important these days, and the recommendation is to enable MFA on all applications that we have externally accessible, like VPN servers or any remote servers like RDP or SSH. It's also recommended to enable MFA on privileged account where any actions are performed by privileged accounts. So some of the tools that organization can use here is Privacy IDEA, Open OTP, and for Mac we have Privileges app. So before we move on to our last strategy, I would like to share a website. Mayank, would you mind opening up Shodan?
Sure. I'm sorry, give me a minute.
So I'll let Mayank do that. So Shodan, it's like a website. It's like Google Search Console, but it's to search for devices that are exposed to the internet. So you can see how easy it is for anybody to look at the assets that have public IP. So you can see here, it's a camera that's accessible for anyone, and it's open to the internet. If you go back, right, there, like if you see the screenshots here, it's a screenshot of Windows login screen, and they don't have MFA or anything enabled. And if by chance the administrator are using the same password as some other social media accounts, and if those social media accounts had some hack and some passwords were shared, Yeah, so pretty much anybody can log in using that password and get access to your network. So it's pretty important to have MFA, and also important to patch any operating system vulnerabilities as soon as possible. All right, then. Moving on. Next slide, please. Cool. The eighth strategy is about daily backups. So organizations should make sure that they have daily backups of any new or existing data that is critical for the environment. Backing up configurations of devices, software is important, as this will help in restoring the system to a happy or good state after any disaster or a security incident. Now, testing of restoring of this data is also important. So I would say it's highly recommended to make sure that whatever data that you're backing up, you should test regularly whether you can restore that using that same data that you have backed up. So some of the tools that I've listed on the slides are backup clients that can be installed on both Windows or Mac, and this can be used to back up your data to a remote location like a file server or a cloud, S3 bucket or something like that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is a quick recap on all the 8 strategy. So again, the first 4 controls are to prevent malware from executing on your machines. The next 3 controls are to limit an extent of the cybersecurity incident. And the last is about how organizations can recover from an attack. Next slide, please. So today we discussed about all the 8 strategies, right? Now, how can you implement these strategies? So first of all, we have to understand, or the organization needs to understand their environment or what business they are in. They have to evaluate what is their current cybersecurity maturity level. And in the next couple of slides, I have added screenshots on like different maturity level that is described by Australian Cybersecurity Center, and it can help your organization to assess which level they are in. Can you go back? Yeah, thank you, Mayank. So the next step is perform risk assessment. So this is where you look at all the threats and the probability of these threats exploiting your applications. So you can do it yourself and organize, and you can take help from organizations like us that can help identifying what are the threats that your organization can face. Now, the fourth step is about implementing these risk mitigation strategies. So based on all this data that you have collected from step 3, you have to make sure, okay, start with the risk that is most concerning to your organization. And then the last step is perform testing to verify the effectiveness of these strategies that you have implemented. So like I said, moving on to the next couple of slides, I won't be going deep into each of the maturity level, but it's something that's for your takeaway. You can review your current understanding or the current cybersecurity control that you have for your organizations, and make sure where you are at and where you want to get to. So that will be important. So, and again, so I want to close this out. I mean, that's all I have for today, but I want to close it out by saying all these cybersecurity controls are important, but this doesn't guarantee of preventing any cybersecurity incident, but it can definitely help make it, or it can make it difficult for your adversaries to compromise the system. So the last slide, please. So this slide has have our contacts. The contact slide, please. So this slide has our contact details. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Now I'll hand over to Peter for any questions that we have in the chat. You're on mute, Peter. Peter, you're on mute, I think.
That's a tremendous presentation, fellows. Mayank and Ashish, I learned a lot personally there, and it was very clear. And congratulations, because I believe cybersecurity is one of those issues that a lot of people just wish would go away. You know, it's not something they want to deal with, and of course, that's where fellows like you come in.
Right.
But I do have some questions actually, and you know, there are a number of free tools on the market. You mentioned free tools. If there are free tools, why do big companies spend so much money on cybersecurity?
Yes. So sure. Yeah, there are so many free tools that we described about each of the controls. So we have free tools in the market, but it's the problem with the free tools is there are no support for supporting that tools, right? It's the patch updates are a little slower on that side. So that's what's the difference between a commercial tool and free tool. Commercial tools get patch updates quickly. Free tools, that they get it, but maybe like a month after that a commercial tool has applied a patch. So again, with the support, it might be limited support. There might be a lot of baggage on maintaining that tool. So that's the only thing. But if an engineer has experience managing a tool, I would say why not go for a free tool, and it should be fine.
How do you manage the effectiveness of a tool that you use?
So that's where companies like us can come in, or you can. So we always make sure. So suppose for each cybersecurity control, we have listed out a cyber tool that can help you protect it. So again, testing is really important, where people come. So there is a concept called penetration testing in cybersecurity. It's a role which constantly evaluate your controls that you have in place. It constantly tries to hack, okay, if there is an multi-factor authentication enabled, how can we work around the multi-factor authentication and try to hack your system? So there is a concept called penetration testing, and those are services that Cygnik Tech, our company, offers and can help you test the maturity level of your controls.
Okay, a question for the floor too. Is weak Wi-Fi security an issue?
So weak Wi-Fi as in like?
What is your weak Wi-Fi password? Weak Wi-Fi password is a security issue.
Or the network wise? Can you elaborate?
Either one, yeah, you might take them both actually.
Yeah, sure. So definitely weak password is definitely an issue. So again, there has been several. So it's we had, so when Wi-Fi came into existence, we had it was based off WEP standards. And so what was the problem with WEP was anybody can sniff on your Wi-Fi network and sniff the password, and they can break your password like in 5 minutes. So they moved on to WPA2 now, which has more stronger authentication. But if you have a weak password set up in your organization, that makes it easier for anybody to sniff the traffic and start breaking the password, and they can authenticate to your network and then just get into your network and start creating havoc, right? So yes, weak Wi-Fi, I would say, I assume it's a weak password you mean by the question. So I would say it's a problem, definitely. So we need to make sure that the password we are setting up for the Wi-Fi accounts are stronger and maybe more than 20 characters for sure.
What about the Wi-Fi we purchase? I mean, there's certainly top line and bottom line companies that would offer services.
So the Wi-Fi services or the devices?
Well, I don't know, but you can. I don't know.
Okay. So
what is your devices? If
so,
we got router and different brands.
Right. So again, there are tools that we get from cheap Chinese market. I would say to stay away from it. I would go for any well-renowned routers that have more security features that are enabled. Yes, so yeah, that would be my recommendation here.
Okay, very good. I want to ask you a very basic question.
Yes, sir.
So you talk about Microsoft macros. What's a macro?
Sure. So macros are like Visual Basic scripts. So like salespeople, they use macros to pull data from internet or from other websites to make sure the data is populated on their Excel sheets. So it's a script that is run on the back end, and that script is used by attackers to download, can be leveraged by attackers to download some virus or something on your machine. So it's just that it makes your life easier for some people, but it's also a tool that attackers can use to compromise the system.
They get into the script and add their program to
program. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I just went through that with 9 websites for a company, and oh my goodness, I learned so much.
Yeah. Right.
It was terrible. Another question, another somewhat basic question, but I work with an organization that employs 16 different programs of various things, from registration programs to social media programs to, you can just imagine just all the different things they have online passwords for.
Yes.
That becomes tougher to manage in itself when you have that many programs. How do you get around 16 passwords?
Sure. So we can have, so the strategy around that would be having a single sign-on, right? So managing all the authentication through one application. So that's what we call single sign-on. I think we talked about this in one of the controls. So we have applications which can, so an application can act like a bridge, and it can integrate to like 10 applications that you're talking about. So the person who wants to authenticate to maybe application A, he just have to authenticate to that bridge, and that gives you access to application A. And now if he wants wants access to application D or E, he can use the same credential he can use the same bridge, and bridge can give you authenticate or give access to the application D or E. The other strategy could be, if that's too much for the organization, you can use password vault. We have LastPass, we have 1Password, all these commercial tools, it's cheaper also, like it's for home and small business use as well, where you can store your individual application passwords. So that way you can store a long and secure password instead of reusing the same password for each application. So I would say, if organization is very tech savvy, they can go for having a single sign-on, like that bridge application that I was talking about, or they can use these password vault, where they can store these application password and use these password vault to log into any application.
Right. So applications where it says that I can sign on with my Google account or my Facebook, that's the bridge, or that's like a bridge. It's the same function.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
Okay. Any more questions out there from the folks listening in? Well, listen, I think that the two of you have done a terrific job today. I just want to one more time remind folks of upcoming sessions. Sorry. Ashish and Mayank, this was a tremendous start to our series, and thank you for starting off the series. The first one's always the toughest, but lots of good information for us there. You'll find a recording. We'll have some kind of record of this as well. You'll find that out there probably on our websites. And we look forward to next week's session, which I will be presenting on successful selling in a world of digital transformation. In case you noticed, if you have a business, the phone doesn't ring very much. It's just, my background is the newspaper business. And when I started the newspaper business, we had people lined up at the transit to buy advertising. And by the time I left, boy, it was tough to find the people who wanted to buy advertising. So there's a digital transformation, and selling is a big part. Selling into it is a huge part of it. And we'll be speaking about that next week. Also upcoming, as you can see, we have Sam Eastman, the third person in our little group, who'll be talking about SEO 2 weeks from now. Another topic that's a little bit different. And, you know, we all know SEO, but we all think we know the basics, but I'm sure Sam will be taking us a little bit deeper and giving us some more pointers just to add to our knowledge. And then we are on to the second part of our series, and I'll be talking about optimizing your company's LinkedIn footprint. Sam will be talking about paid ads online. And then we'll be back with these two fine gentlemen who will be talking about cloud computing and why it's essential. A very important session in itself, particularly because of fears for security issues. So why cloud computing is essential, that's May 18th, and we hope you're able to join us. Again, I want to thank our speakers today, Mayank and Ashish, very good job. I want to thank our audience for attending, and I hope you come back for the rest of our series. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.